Hello, my name is Dr. Flo Cofer, and I'm running for mayor of Sacramento. So I think I'm the best choice for a mayor, in part because I am a public health professional. And so we understand how systems work and how to bring people together to be able to solve big challenges. We understand the process that we go through where, people at first are not sure about change because change is hard for us human beings. And then we go through this process where we better understand how change can be good for us. But it takes time. And so I think having someone who appreciates that is incredibly important. I'm also a person who is really frustrated by some of the changes that I'm seeing in Sacramento and not for the better. And I believe that we can actually do something about those. I think that we really can make a change and make progress. And one of the things that I think is really challenging is that we have, some corporate entities that have basically bought and sold our politicians. And so instead of having solutions to some of the challenges we have, they're doing their bidding. And I'm a corporate-free candidate. I'm running to represent the people of Sacramento, and I think that's the big difference maker between me and everyone else in the field, and I think that's why I'm incredibly qualified to be your next mayor.
Are there any particular corporations that you want to point out that you feel have Sacramento politicians in their pocket?
I think especially, some of the real estate and the apartment association, part of the reason why we weren't able to pass rent control a few years ago is because many of our politicians were in the pockets of, those entities. And so instead of doing what we needed here to make sure people could continue to afford to live here, we ended up, voting against our own interests. And I don't want to see that happen moving forward. I think people are fed up with the money in politics, and they want to be able to believe that government can work for the people, not just lobbyists and donors. One of the things I love about Sacramento is that people here really care in a way that you don't always see in other cities. On Thanksgiving morning, people wake up early to do Run to Feed the Hungry to support our food bank. This is a place where people roll up their sleeves and don't just give money, but they get involved. And I think that's a power that we really should be harnessing here locally to be able to address some of the challenges that we're now all in widespread agreement are facing this region, and that actually have solutions. I think public office, especially at the local level, is an opportunity for all of us to get involved. And that's what I've done. I have served on the Active Transportation Commission for our city. I was an appointee to the Mayor's Climate Commission, and I chaired the Measure U Community Advisory Committee for 4 terms. I've also served on the Sheriff's Outreach Community Advisory Board and helped out with some of the Mental Health Services Act work. And even right now in my day job, I'm working with the Community Health Improvement Plan. So there are so many ways that I've worked with our city and county government, and I understand how things work, and I think that's the expertise that I'm bringing to the table, the perspective of most of the people in the city of Sacramento working with the city and identifying, again, what are those pain points? What are the challenges? In addition to that, I think I bring a public health perspective to this role, which means that I'm thinking about how systems work. And lastly, I'm a corporate-free candidate, and I think what that means for many people is that I am going to listen to all of the players in our city, both those that I am, accepting contributions from, which are mostly the people who live here, and those that I'm not, and wanting to be able to find solutions that work for everyone. And that's a real distinction between me and some of the other candidates. They've all served at least 2 terms in office, and so we've seen some of the best of what they have to offer, and that, unfortunately, they oversaw us getting into our homelessness and housing crisis. And so I think it's time for some new ideas and some new leadership, and I think that's what I'm bringing to the table, is having known how things work while also having worked with many of the players already in the region and being able to understand what the opportunities are. And that's why I think Sacramento is looking for new leadership, and that's what I bring to the table in this mayor's race. I lived downtown 11 years ago, and so it is shocking now to be there and to see a city that I hardly recognize anymore. It was not a tent city when I lived downtown. And so in the span of just a decade, we have seen such a tremendous increase in our homelessness numbers. And it's really clear that a lot of this comes down to affordability. And so when we're thinking about how we're going to address this, we have to recognize that what we're doing right now is not working for anyone. It's not working for the people who are sleeping in our tents. It's not working for the kids who are walking to school. It's not working for the people who wake up to somebody sleeping on their porch, and it's not working for our business community. So with that level of alignment, we're in a great place to be able to say, okay, if this isn't working for anyone, then we all can agree we need to pivot and do something different than what we've always done, because if we don't, we'll get what we've always gotten, which is not working for anyone. So first and foremost, we need to make sure that we stop the failed policy of telling people where they can't be, and instead answer the key question of where can people go immediately. immediately. And so we need to be able to set up safe ground all around town where people are able to have access to showers, where people are able to use the bathroom, where people are able to use laundry facilities, and where they can charge their cell phones, where people can have some temporary shelter and also a place to be able to triage and get them into additional services they may need. And then we need to find some of the low-cost options to be able to keep people housed. Because for every one person we get rehoused, 3 more are becoming unhoused. So we need to stabilize people in their housing because that's much easier to do than rehousing them after they've become unhoused. And then the second part of that is we also need to make sure we can get people into some of the housing that's available, whether that's helping with down payments or whether that's turning some of our local hotels and motels that are small businesses where people are going for a few days already into long-term shelter where we can maybe house families with children and have childcare on site, or where we can house some of our elders who are the fastest growing number of people who are becoming homeless and actually have some of the social services available so that they are not experiencing loneliness and some of the other things that plague people as they get older. And then lastly, of course, we need to make sure that we are building more affordable housing. And there are some ways to be able to lower the costs without undercutting our workers and making sure that we have affordable housing in this region so people can continue to live here and have the hope and prosperity that all of us want to enjoy in this region and that we did enjoy just a few short years ago. I'm the daughter of 2 public school teachers. And when I was 11, we were at my aunt's birthday dinner and my dad collapsed and died of heart disease. And so one of the things that I reflect on when I think back on that experience is first and foremost, all the policies that didn't exist to protect him. He started smoking during a time when the tobacco industry lied about the harms of cigarettes and when we didn't have smoke-free policies. But what I also think about are the ways in which in the aftermath of that, my mom was able to continue to afford our housing. So I didn't also lose the entire community the only community I had known to that point during a time when I had just lost my parent and one of the most devastating and traumatizing impacts of my life. And so one of the things that I fully understand is that we have workers in the middle who may not meet the criteria for very low or low income housing, but still need to be able to afford housing. Because if we subject them to the market rate housing, then as soon as there's one emergency, one lost income, one death, one medical emergency, they're now in a position where they don't have a lot of savings because they've had to spend so much of their money just trying to make their housing costs every month. And so part of what we need to do is figure out how to put together something for the missing middle. Those folks who are not at the lowest end, but also should not be subject to market rate because the market has decided that 10,000 people in the county of Sacramento and 5,000 in the city will sleep on our streets. And so we don't like that decision. So we need to make different decisions. And one of the ways to do that is really to be able to look and see how can we streamline the costs of some of these projects? What are the pain points? And even though I'm not accepting corporate money, I've sat down with the developers. They're an essential part of our community. And I've said, what are the challenges to cost? And we're starting to brainstorm some of the ways that we can lower the cost of materials by using the purchasing power of the city of Sacramento and maybe in combination with the county to be able to lock in pricing. So if we're going to build 5,000 new units over the next 10 years, then we can lock in a price so we can get that bulk purchasing so that the cost of materials isn't driving up the cost of projects. What would it look like if we had community benefits agreements and we did the environmental quality reviews in advance of projects coming forward so that we could make sure that those are not delaying the project and increasing costs? I think there are some ways that we can bring the creativity and innovation of this region together. There are so many people here who care and who have expertise, and we haven't really provided an opportunity for those voices to be a part of the solutions, and that's what I want to bring as your next mayor. First and foremost, I want to say, that public safety is incredibly important to me, and I'm a public safety candidate because I'm a public health professional. And unlike the very handsome men that I'm running against, I'm the only one who's experiencing safety concerns as a woman in this region. And those safety concerns are very different. So when I look and I see that violent crime is down, I'm excited about that. And I'm thankful for the nonprofits that have been part of the Violence Prevention and Intervention Network that deserve the majority of the credit for the prevention aspects, because it's not emergency response that keeps keeps us safe. It's actually making sure that we prevent crimes in the first place. Because I know that you and I didn't wake up this morning, and no one in Sacramento woke up this morning hoping to have a reason to call 911, because it means that either we're unsafe or we're having a medical emergency. But either way, none of those were on our 2024 bingo card. So we really are hoping not to have to call 911. But when it comes to the downturn that we've seen in violent crime, I think we also need to look at root causes in the same way that we've talked about prevention of those. We also need to talk about prevention of the retail theft. We didn't always live in a city where retail theft was as high as it is right now. And part of that goes back to the conversation we just had about housing. When people are stressed, when they can't afford to live in the region, then that does increase. And so what are we doing to be able to reduce those pain points for the people who live here, to make sure that we are lowering the crime that's happening here? And that's one of the ways, right? We don't want to just punish people after the fact, although we certainly don't want to just accept that crime is happening. But instead, what we want to do is focus on what are the root causes of this and how can we prevent it. And part of that is making sure that we have living wage jobs in this region. Part of that is making sure that people can afford to live here and are not, subject to struggling to survive. Because when we get desperate, that's when often we, commit crimes of survival. And I don't want to live in a place where we're forcing people into crimes of survival. I want to live in a place where we can prosper and flourish, and where our business community is protected and supported as well as an essential part of our community. The police department has worked with our violence prevention and intervention network. And I think in the same way, Chief Lester has laid out really back in June, she said, public safety is not the responsibility of one entity. It's the responsibility of all of us. And so I'm really interested in looking to see how can we make sure we make investments in ways that invest in prevention, and then also allow our police department to be able to do the response, and recognize also that we may need to diversify who the responders are so we get the best outcome. And that's what I'm really invested in. I'm not pigeonholed into one particular solution. I want to do what works, and I want to work with all the entities that are invested in having solutions to the problems that we're facing. Obviously, the one that's looming over all of this really is climate change. We are in a situation where we have already passed the point of no return. And so we now are in a place where we're trying to mitigate the harm that might be coming to us with the climate changing. And our region is particularly vulnerable because we can have extremes of weather that we're not accustomed to. And so part of what we really are positioned to do well is to make Sacramento a green jobs hub. It's a way for us to feed two birds with one feeder, to use less violent imagery than killing birds with stones. And I think it's a great way for us to be able to take advantage of the fact that we have unions here, and we have, our community colleges and our universities, and we have Aggie Square coming, which is supposed to be an innovation hub. So let's innovate. Let's put together the big brains in this region to be able to solve some of our solar, power storage issues, and be able to really be a leader, because Sacramento is the capital of the fourth largest economy on the planet Earth. And so we really have an opportunity to not only do something that is regionally specific, but that can serve the entire world. And so I'd like to be able to put us on the map with that, because it will also help to diversify our economy and make sure that we have not just public sector jobs, but also private sector jobs that are being planted here. And I think another thing that is really important to Sacramento is painting a vision for what we can be. When you say the word Coachella, people think of a music festival and not the fact that Coachella is a city. That's how big their brand is. The brand is bigger than the city. So what are the opportunities in Sacramento? We have a thriving arts community. We have people who are incredibly creative. We can be, the pinnacle of what a mid-sized city can be. Instead of looking to be able to replicate what's been done elsewhere, what is Sacramento's brand, and how do we double down on that and really make it so that we have a name for ourselves based on what we do? And I think there's just so much here. We have all the pieces of the puzzle laid out. It's time for us to be able to tilt the box up, see the vision, and start putting those pieces together. I really do want a Sacramento that works for everyone. I don't believe that somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. I think we all can benefit if we come together and we actually harness the power of the people who live here and really listen to the expertise that we have in this community. And that's what I'm committed to. I'm committed to making sure that our city has priorities, and that everyone here, from our business community to our nonprofits to our neighborhood associations and to our community members, know how they can plug in to help make us more successful and achieve our goals. And I think that we can really do something powerful and positive in Sacramento. And I'm really excited to be, a part of that as the next mayor.